Hi, everybody. Welcome to Keeping It Real. I'm Michelle Carpenter, and welcome to my YouTube channel. And as you are well aware by now, for those of you who that follow me, watch this platform that we're on, um, Keeping It Real is very much about us being real, me being real. The guests that I invite on, or the guests that choose to come on, it's all about us being human beings, and we all have a story to share. And I've said this time and time and time again. And today I have a beautiful human being, Ellie, that is here with us. And I invited Ellie on. Ellie and I have done a dance together. We've walked a beautiful journey together. And Ellie, where do you live in the United States, by the way? Texas?
I'm in Texas, yeah.
Texas, okay.
I'm from
So
Maryland, but I'm in Texas.
there we go. Okay. So I am so happy to have this beautiful human being here with me. To see her smiling is nothing short of miraculous. And that's where I feel incredibly honored, is where somebody like yourself has gone, yes, and you've like leaped on and gone, okay. and
The
and
point where
he's
I didn't have a choice.
kind of like,
Apparently, I wanted that. I'm finding
yes,
out.
yes, yes. But you know what? That's what I love, is that, I saw you on Instagram putting yourself out there, and I'm like, okay, dwa. I just and the funny thing is, guys, okay, so this is how we roll, okay, is that Ellie and I were overthinking things, and she's like, okay, what are we gonna talk about? And I was like doing a card, and I got this card, which is Medicine Mother, and it says honor your inner knowing. So we're going to honor our inner knowing, whatever that looks like today. But I was going to say welcome, but welcome. God, brain, come back. Welcome, Ellie, to Keeping It Real.
You,
We did
you,
say we
it's
were going to laugh
awesome to
together,
be
didn't
here.
we? Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yes.
absolutely, absolutely. So tell us about where you've been, where you're walking towards. Share with us whatever resonates from here. Okay.
Okay. So, really in short, where I'm coming from and walking towards, it's a story that consists of a tough upbringing that led to a conscious and spiritual awakening that then led to self-discovery and healing that ultimately led to me finding my purpose and my mission. And here I am.
Okay.
um,
So
Want me to go into some detail?
I would love for you to go into some detail
Okay.
because, I know that people, for me, in my world, I'm wanting the realness, and
Yes.
I say to anybody and everybody, we all have a story to share in some way. And uh, it's very much about, what do you want to share that you feel that would resonate with our audience, that can help people in the way, oh, and I'm just feeling your heart right now, that can
Yeah.
help them, because I know you are such a beautiful human being. And um and I do. We were saying this beforehand. Like, I really feel so honored to to see you out of bed.
Yes. Yes, that's right. I couldn't, yeah.
So tell
We
us about that. What happened?
that.
What
Okay.
was going on health wise?
So, well, a lot. Really, I think I'm just gonna take this back to the beginning. Is that okay?
Go for
That
it.
because I think I'll get thrown off if I just go into Texas. Um, Really the catalyst to my whole story was what I spoke about and shared about on social media about a time when I was sitting on the top of a hill behind my house that I grew up in, and it was a normal everyday experience for me to go out there and just kind of admire the sky. And this one time when I was 10 was very different than any other time because I had started questioning. I remember consciously questioning what was behind the blue sky that I saw. And um, I had a knowing, and I now know that it was essentially a download. It literally felt like if this is me and someone was standing here with some information, they just took it and planted it in my head. It was just a knowing that behind or beyond the sky was where we came from. It was home. And then I had this knowing that there was going to be a time in the future that felt very much like the world was coming to an end, but it was only going to feel this way. We were going to ultimately get through it, and that it was essentially why I was here, and that I was going to be helping people. I was going to be used in it in some way, shape, or form. And there was no questioning anything I heard. It was just like so matter of fact. And I was so accepting of it. And it was just like, okay, I've got this information. And I just knew I needed to hold on to it. And I kind of left it at that, which I now know that's what I was supposed to do. I was just supposed to know and hold on to it. And that was the I guess the catalyst to everything that I've been going through, but I didn't realize it then. Um, so that happened, but to take you guys all the way back to the beginning, just to understand all of this. Um, I'm originally from Maryland. I was born on the East Coast in 1985, and I'm the youngest of two. My brother is almost exactly 2 years older than me. My parents thought it would be a good idea to have two Scorpios. I don't know, that's on them. But my mom was a school teacher. She's retired now. And my father, he's always worked in construction. And my childhood was tough, like so many. Um, my dad really struggled with alcoholism. And in August of 1989, I was 3, my brother was 5. My dad decided to leave, and that was obviously devastating for all of us involved. Um, and that experience on its own created a confusing and painful and chaotic upbringing. But when you throw things like generational sin and other traumatic experiences into the mix, you're looking at a really unstable foundation. And I'm realizing now that that's the situation for so many of us, for so many families, whether we're aware of it or not. And that upbringing, the trauma that I was exposed to can really create a good recipe for future self-destruction, which
I love how
is
you laugh about that, like, ah, ha, ha,
I
ha, ha,
can
yep.
now. I can now.
It's
I'm
like,
like, yeah, bring it on.
yeah, yeah. And I love how you have said that so many of us may or may not know about it. And I can
Yes.
completely resonate with that because I did not know at the age of 33, because that was, we call it the awakening, or we're waking up to ourselves or whatever, but I had no idea how traumatized I
Yeah.
was,
Yeah.
up until, because it was just stress, 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 stress. And I feel like I'm just going to put this out there today that, guys, our stress levels, I'm still working through. My PTSD, I'm still working through. I've just had a massive, like 2 days of just like this. It felt like I was in the chaos again. And 2 days before that, I was like seeing the angels. Life was amazing. And I'm like, oh, like Homer Simpson, like what the fuck? Like,
Yeah.
but that's part of the human experience. So I honor you
Much
in
more.
sharing that, because some people don't know until they know, and some
Yeah.
people may never know. Some people may
Yeah.
never understand, or um, you know, bear witness to wanting to go within. They may just be like, this is the norm. And true story of basically about half an hour ago, before you and I connected, my husband phoned me because I was not having a great day yesterday, and he's in Japan at the moment. And he phoned me and he said to me, "How are you doing today, Bunny?" And I was like, "Oh, I'm okay." I just said, "I'm so tired." I'm sure he kind of like phones is like, "Okay, what's coming up today?" You know. But we're both Cancerians. Our son's Cancerian. I found
Wow.
out the other day that a client of mine looked at my chart. She goes, "I think I'm Aries in rising or whatever, which is also a water." I'm like, "Oh my God." That's why I
A lot
just
of
cried.
water.
A lot of water. And then the funny thing is like, damn it, you can't make this shit up. So before you and I connected, I'm like, okay, just tell me what I need to know today. Water guardian. I'm like, are you freaking kidding me? Connect with your emotions. How much more connection do you want me to make, people? Like, how much more? Anyway, there's a bit of a sidetrack. So back to you. You see, I did say to you, we'll be like 80. Ellie admitted that she was ADHD like me. I'm like, oh my God, we're going to have so much fun. So, but to come back to your story, okay, and your life. So that's a massive, massive event to have a
Mhm.
father figure leave,
Yes. Yes. Yeah.
and to honor your mom. To I just know what it's felt like to have a week of being a single mom. You have to rearrange everything. When something comes up for your kid, you have to rearrange everything. And being a single mom cannot be easy. I
No.
have been there myself, but to have two littlies, and to have to go through what you've experienced, your brother, your mother, is not easy.
Yeah, not at all. I remember watching her when I was younger and being aware of just how hard it was for her. And not even because of necessarily anything she was showing or doing. I've always sensed, but I just remember just being so taken back by just the way she was able to push through so many things. Um so yeah, it was, when I say it was devastating for everyone involved, including my dad, I'm sure. I mean, we haven't had that conversation, but I know that it was devastating for him too. Everyone involved, especially my mom. Um, so yeah, where was I? Oh, we were talking about how it leads to self-destruction, and it did. Um, I mean, pretty early on. I mean, it was a little bit of everything. It led to eating disorders, to unhealthy relationships with men over and over again. And by the time I got to college, I was drinking way too much, smoking all the time. I mean, just overall, it led to years of not such a pretty picture. And in 2013, I had made a pretty abrupt decision to move to Texas from Maryland. And I mean, this was so abrupt that my family had an intervention with me before I left, trying to talk me out of it. They were concerned, and because of this, the self-destruction, they had every right to be concerned, to be honest. But this was, it wasn't a knowing like I had on the hill. This was a an intuitive feeling that I couldn't shake. I didn't know why I was being led to Texas in particular, but I knew it was Texas. And I never felt like I was running from something. It felt like I was going there to find something. And I mean, that's ultimately what it was. I just knew if I stayed in Maryland, stayed in the situation, and didn't pull myself out of it to observe it. I just knew. And again, this is just feeling. I wasn't consciously really aware of all of this. It was just, I didn't I didn't know the whys. I was just kind of going with it. I was just following the feeling.
I
And
love
yeah, I
I
just
love
knew if
that.
I had stayed in Maryland, I was going to remain lost.
Mm.
Trying to explain that to my family was not so easy, especially because they had just seen the patterns that I had created and just the self-destruction that was going on.
Yeah.
But ultimately, I did uh, get to Texas. Um, and before I dive into what's happened in Texas, I want to mention just kind of some weird experiences that I have kind of always had throughout my life, and they'll fit into the puzzle. So I want to make people aware of them. Um, what just kind of always made me feel different and set me apart from people. And for a long time, I don't mean that in a good way. I meant it was I felt very alone because of these things. But
I completely resonate with you.
yeah,
Completely.
yeah, I know you do.
Yeah. And
uh,
and and that's it's and I'm just going to stop you there because I feel like so many people that are awakening to themselves, they it's I said to my husband, I just wish I could drink alcohol like every other person and just get drunk like every weekend, and literally like just having a freaking, and it's not, and I enjoy a glass of wine, I enjoy a gin and tonic, I enjoy whiskey, but to go off the charts, and meaning that just to sometimes just numb, what
mm,
I'm feeling
yes, yes,
and yes, it's my choice, it's my journey, but I do know that the resonance, and I can completely resonate because it brings this deep sense of like a misfit. Like, where
yes,
do I fit in? Where do I
yes,
fit
yeah,
into the rest of the world? And I used to fit into the rest of the world, like when I went through my parting stages,
yeah.
but I don't know if you know this, but I'm such a freaking
And
late
you were
bloomer.
90.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, I'm such a late bloomer. I only tried weed at 45.
I've
45 years
heard
old.
you say that in other podcasts. I would have never like gotten that vibe from you. I would have never known that if you hadn't if I hadn't heard you
Yeah. It's
before.
and
That
it was
surprised
just it was, does it surprise you? Because I'm,
does,
'cause
yeah.
I'm so wild.
I feel like you're so wise. Yes.
No, wild.
Both?
I'll take both. um, but it really was it just never came into my consciousness. I mean,
Yeah.
my husband that I'm married to, my second husband, we partied at the same places in Johannesburg in the same clubs. He was blown away because we never ever, we probably saw each other often, but didn't realize that, we were at the same place because we came from different places in Johannesburg. But he was like, are you freaking kidding me? You never saw drug exchanges in the clubs and you never, and I'm like, huh? What? What do you mean? Like there were drugs in the clubs? It's like, I was so
I
naive
think so.
and and innocent, um
Yeah.
and for some reason at the same time I feel like I was being protected by my angels. It
Yeah.
was just a road that I somehow didn't choose to go down, which has brought a lot of that um, separation at time. Because when people have shared with me that, oh my God, Michelle, have you tried ecstasy? I'm like, mm-mm. Like at the age of 51, I kind of get intrigued, but then I'm like, what? No, it screws with the mind. And then, I don't need any more screwing with this mind, let me tell you. And people are saying, you got to try it, you got to try it. And I'm like, I just feel safer with the plant medicine. I feel safer with psilocybin,
Yeah.
that it's not, that it's connected into the earth. So anyway, we digress once again, Ali. Let's come back to you. But I resonate because there is that deep sense of, sometimes I feel like we feel so separate, but yet we feel so connected in the
Yes.
separation. Does that make sense?
It makes total sense.
Yeah.
And honestly, for a long time, not for a long time, I remember being when I was very young, like toddler, like I remember thinking like everyone thinks this way, everyone feels what I feel, everyone senses what I sense. I'm thinking that's normal. And then once I started to tell people about certain things, that's when I realized, okay, this isn't what everybody experiences. Or I would go to school and they would say something and I was like, okay, that's not what happens for me at all. So yes, that very much resonates with me. And some of the things that I experienced, they are weird, but not crazy weird. So for instance, like I can remember very early on sensing unseen energy, like sensing the presence of past loved ones. I've had a lot of death in my family, and um a number of the women in my family have spoken about that. So I felt relatively comfortable talking about that. But it's interesting how we would speak about it, but um we would kind of leave it at that. Like we wouldn't dive into it any further as like a family unit. Um where for me I've always felt very intrigued by that. Also a little scared, let's be honest. For a long time it freaked me out. Even if it wasn't necessarily a bad feeling, it was just I knew I felt something and I couldn't see it and I didn't know what it was and it would freak me out. Um so there was that sensing the unseen energy. But I always have had just I've always just been very intuitive. I've had feelings, I've had knowings that I can't explain. I can literally feel what other people are feeling around me. I can walk into a room and instantly be able to sense the vibe. um I've always been drawn to animals, like oddly drawn to animals and nature. And really all living things, honestly. I've consistently had ringing in my ears and sensations throughout my body. And when I would close my eye, I remember the first time, I think I was in kindergarten, and my teacher had us close our eyes, and she mentioned how we're seeing black when we close our eyes. We see nothing. And for me, I always saw more of like a mandala, like it's colorful and like I never saw black. So I'm like, what is she talking about? So
Wow.
that would happen, and none of that's too crazy. It's not too out there. However, there were some other situations like um on two separate occasions, two different women. One time when I was 16, one time I was 18. Both were at work, two different places. One was a Bath and Body Works, one was a tanning salon. And both times these women just approached me. It was almost like they beelined it to me. And they just had this stoic presence about them. They were so calm and just like I can't explain it. And both of them they both worded it in a way. They approached me and said, I have this gift and I can sense that you are open to receiving it. And both of them told me different things, but all the things they told me are things that no one would know. And I now realize that was, God planting seeds, like confirmation, because I'm having all these weird experiences and I'm like, am I crazy? No one else is experiencing this.
Mhm.
And then I started to get confirmation in ways like that. Um, Probably the experience that has stood out the most aside from my experience on the hill was in 2005. My grandmother was um she was passing. This was, I think, weeks before she had passed, and she was in the hospital. She was completely, they had her sedated, and I mean she wasn't talking. She was under. And I had gone to visit her. No one was there at the time, so it was just me and her. And I'm sitting next to her bed, and I'm just thinking about her and just like loving on her. And I hear her say my name clear as day, and in a way that, um, I mean, it was not only her voice, but it was the tone. And she said Allie, and it was I was debating on if she said Allie or Allison. She said Allie, and the way she said it was like a question, but also like a concern. Like if you hear something fall and like you think it's your child that's falling and you're like, Allie, like it was very much like that. And it freaked me out. And I start to run out of the room, and then I stop myself, and I feel bad for like
Mm.
running out, for being afraid. I feel bad. So I stop myself and I walk back over to her side, and then I'm back in my head and I'm freaking out again. So I just kiss her on her head, and I run out of the room, and I am almost like afraid to look up. I feel like I'm gonna see like a bunch of dead people.
Yeah.
And I end up opening my eyes and looking up, and it's just nurses and people. And I'm like, okay, thank God. And I'm walking out and I'm just like, okay, I'm okay, but what just happened?
Mm.
So just very weird things like that that I had experienced. And never talked about really with anyone. I think I've told my mom about that, but it took really, if I've coming out about anything, it's been more recent, and it's because I'm just comfortable with it, and even then it's few and far in between that I talk to. Um
Okay,
so
but
things
what
happen.
is what is it
Commenting.
about? Okay,
Go ahead.
but what is it about that though that you've just said? Because so many of us that feel that we're off the charts or batshit crazy or receive the connection to the
Mhm.
universe. It's interesting because for me, I can only speak for myself, but I felt like there was a lot of shame in my sharing.
Yeah, it's well, and
Because
I
who's going
kind
to believe us? Who's going to believe us? You know,
yes. And I mean, yes.
no,
So
so I don't know if that resonates, but just
yes.
because I hear this so often from my clients, like, Michelle, I think I'm seeing things and I think I'm sensing things and I'm feeling things and I'm like, yes, yeah. Like I don't like to take away from anybody's journey that that's wrong or that's incorrect, or because
Yeah.
you see what you see and you sensing what you sense. I might just be a little bit of a guidance navigator along the way, but there's something in that, Ellie, where so many of us have perhaps been shamed, okay? And
Yes.
what's so fascinating is I only realized this a few weeks ago. So my mom's been passed over for 2.5 years, and my mom was actually really psychic. She would
Mm,
say things and say, "Oh, I've seen this, I've seen that," but then she'd shut it down. I say, "Oh, mom, really?" And she'd say, "Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah," but my mom was very much involved in church, and then when I labeled myself, a medium or a psychic or whatever, clairvoyant, you're speaking to the devil, Michelle. But I remembered like I said, a few months ago, a few weeks ago, I was like, oh my God, my mom used to say these things to me, but only
yeah.
to me. And then when I kind of prodded or prodded a little bit more, like, Mom, what? Tell me more, um, it's just a bunch of rubbish, and maybe that was her insecurity. But there's definitely, I feel like we all have the gifts.
Yes.
But
A
what's your
hundred.
what's your sense about that? Do you think that we do that we because we perhaps are misunderstood in a classroom environment or in a social environment?
I honestly, I think it's a lot of things. I mean, even if you look at things like mental health disorders and depression, and there's so much shame, at least in the US, there's just so much shame around these things. And really, I don't think at the end of the day, I think it's simply just because we don't understand it. What we don't understand scares us. And
Hmm,
that, you know what I mean? That it just
I do.
it's
Yeah.
easy to say, oh, that's rubbish, or oh, that's
Yes,
crazy.
but that's where the lid is put
You
on.
stop and think about it. It's like this is mind-boggling. Like you just heard your grandmother. She's not speaking to you. You can see that she's not physically speaking to you with her mouth, and you just heard her. Like that's we can't wrap our minds around that. You know what I mean? Or
Yeah.
so many of us can't. And I couldn't at that time. And I'm sure even your mom who was psychic and had these abilities, I mean, her logical mind, I'm sure, was very much talking herself out of it. So I don't think it was anything personal against you, or, I don't think she was trying to direct put anything on you, like I think we just we just logically talk ourselves out of so many very real things that we're experiencing.
Yes, and who's going to accept us when we talk about these things? You know, who's
Ex-
going to really give us that confirmation when, like you said, everything you said completely just, yeah, it's the understanding. We seek to understand, we seek to understand. And when we're not understanding, well,
Yeah.
how can it be real?
Yeah.
How can it actually be real?
And
And
that's what's so interesting about those two women, like just coming in to my life and like, well, like
I
the universe
love,
is gonna use what it needs to to give you that confirmation.
yes,
You know what I mean?
absolutely. Well, that is it. It's about the hierarchy. You know, what's it, Vasco's or Vaslow's hierarchy of needs. We
Yes, yes.
we want the acknowledgement, and it's, you know, when you're doing a reading or when you're speaking to somebody, it's about the acknowledgement. Um, and when we don't get the acknowledgement, it's kind of like we then doubt us. I most certainly doubt myself. I mean, I had a client the other day. They sent me an email and said, Michelle, how do you trust the Council of Eight? I said, well, I didn't initially,
Yeah,
yet it was about me. It wasn't about them. It was about me. And she
yeah,
said, because she wants to start doing tarot readings and that. And I said to her, it's about you trusting you. It's about nothing else except us trusting ourselves. And I've really come to this alignment with them that it's always been about me doubting myself, you know, because we want the
yeah,
acknowledgement. We want the acknowledgement. And it doesn't matter how many acknowledgements you get, Ellie, you get the one non-acknowledgement. This client was so cute. She's like, Michelle, you know, so much of your reading was accurate, but there was some of it that wasn't accurate. And I'm like, okay, take on what resonates, what doesn't resonate. I just completely, and I've had to learn this the hard way, is trust in the messages coming through, because we seek to understand in that moment. And if it doesn't resonate, like I got the drink wrong. I said to her, your friend's holding a gin and tonic. It looks like a gin and tonic. And she said, my friend didn't drink gin and tonic, you know. And I was like, okay, I got that wrong, but I can own that. Maybe it was
yeah.
my perception of what I was being shown in that
Right,
moment, you know.
right,
She apparently drinks vodka. So, hello, like it's both fucking
right,
clear. I mean,
right,
hello,
right.
this isn't vodka, by the way. Maybe today I should be drinking vodka.
Oh, you and me both.
I know. Okay,
What?
but I'm gonna fast track you to
Yeah.
when your body was going through so much of a process. Okay.
Okay.
Because I wanna bring you to the space of we know a lot of people are in suffering,
Yes.
and trauma is such a big thing. A few days ago, I kind of suppressed this moment of, because I everything nowadays is trauma this and trauma that, and I was on a podcast and I said to this gentleman, it kind of irks me because everything is trauma nowadays, you know, and sometimes it's just like, it just freaking is what it is, guys. It doesn't mean that you know that everything, we know consciousness, we're getting to learn about consciousness, but everything isn't about trauma, in my
Right.
opinion.
No, I
So,
totally agree.
okay, but I do know that when we first met, that you were very much in your
Very much
physical
about
form and
that.
very
Yeah.
much learning in your in what you have carried emotionally. So,
Yes.
would you like to share a little bit about that?
Yeah. So, um, well, it's interesting because um, well, let me stop and think. I'm trying to. There was I'd gotten to a point by the time I started feeling ill, I'd gotten to a point where COVID had just hit. And I'm remembering this event on the hill, and I'm thinking to myself, that this has to be like the beginning of what I was told was going to feel like the end of the world. Um, and I didn't have a good reaction to the vaccine. I knew that that was going to happen prior to taking to it. I prayed about the vaccine and I knew that I was going to need it for traveling, which I did. A month later, no one was traveling at this time. A month later, I was asked to um, go to Guatemala and build a school with a nonprofit, and you had to have your vaccine. Um, so I knew I needed it for travel. I knew I was going to get sick. And in March of 21, March of 21, 22, March of one of the two. I'll figure it out. My best friend got married, and I was asked to be her maid of honor, and I couldn't even stay for the full wedding. Um, it felt like I was having a series of mini strokes, and I couldn't really control my facial expressions. My hands were swollen and bright red. My feet were swollen and bright wet red. Like I couldn't really think. My heart was like beating out of my chest, and I ended up having to. I left early, and that was on a Saturday. That Monday, I had to leave work. I mean, like it was that the downfall was that quick. And um I ended up what I thought was going to be like a short rest period, like just figure out what's going on, go to the doctors and you'll be good to go. What I thought was going to be a short rest period ended up being like we're going on like 3 years now
Wow.
of feeling awful, feeling okay some days, back to awful. I mean, it was all over the place. Um, so throughout this, and I had prior to getting physically sick, I had, by the time I got to Texas, I had done counseling on my own, group counseling. I'd done a lot. I had finally forgiven my dad. That was, I mean, it was there were some big accomplishments, I will say. I was making some progress. Um, and so I have the reaction to the vaccine. I'm out of work and I'm still continuing to heal past childhood shit. um
Yeah.
and I'm also, because I have ADD, because I am a doer, like I am struggling so badly with the idea of not working. I mean, it was not, I quit quickly, but that was not an easy decision by any means. That is not something my family does. We work and that's what we do. It's all we've known. Like the moment I've been working since I was 14, sometimes multiple jobs. I can't just sit and relax or couldn't then. So I'm kind of freaking out about, you know, what I'm going to do with my time. And I'm also just feeling shitty about myself because for the longest time, like working hard was my identity. Like that's all I knew. And now I can't. So I spent basically 3 years of continuing to heal past wounds, as well as taking a deep dive into, because once you kind of open once you go down one rabbit hole, it opens the door to a million
Yeah,
other.
yeah. I'm gonna work on this, but then there's
Yes.
like five other stories that go with this, and then you're like,
Yes.
oh my God, wow. That's why they call
And
it Pandora's box, and that deep
yes,
night of the what's it called? The dark night of the soul.
that kind of
Yeah.
soul, yeah, which is what I'm now like I'm just coming out of that. Thank goodness. I think at least let's go with that. I truly believe I'm coming out of it. But while finding different ways to heal my pain, I it's counseling, it's meditation, it's yoga, it's breath work, it's you. And then I'm being led down these other doors like quantum theory and parallel universes and gut microbiome and religions that I can't even pronounce. And I mean, it was all over the place. It was all over the place. And but I felt very led in terms of what I was diving into to learn about. Even with you, I think I told you right before right before we had a reading, I emailed you and I said, I was dead asleep last night. I woke up abruptly at 3 a.m. and just felt this urge to turn on the TV. I turn it on and it's you speaking on Next Level Soul podcast. And I mean, you have changed my life. And
Oh,
that was the case for like everything I was diving into. I feel like I get this image now of like my higher self holding like I'm a puppet and my higher self's above me, like, okay, we're going to go over here now and learn about this, and now we're going to go here and learn about this, and now
yes,
you're going
yes.
to rest, and now we're going back to this, and now you're going to call Michelle. I mean, it felt so uncontrollable. It was, I mean, there were, and that's so much of my life. It's just like following feeling and intuition without understanding where it's going, without understanding the why, just trusting and letting it happen.
I love that.
Um, so
That's
does that answer the
incredible.
question? Where are we?
You asking me, like
Are
me.
we?
What's that movie? You're talking to me. You're talking to me. Like I don't freaking know. Um, okay,
Oh my
so
goodness.
I
I might
love
be
how
over
you I
now.
love how you're describing it because it everything that you're saying, I think so many people are going to resonate with because a higher self knows exactly what we need when we need it.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
what you said, and I completely forgot about that, but when you said that, I was like, yes, I remember your email. And and that's the thing. There's a point of reference. Everything comes to us when we are ready to hear it, know it, understand it, feel it, whatever the
Yes.
case may be. Um,
Yes.
but the hard part is, I think, a lot of us, remember, we're taught that everything's outside of ourselves.
Hmm.
So, so, and I can only imagine, I know with my knees, when my knees were swollen and looking like they were 100 years old, man, I was in the doing. I was going for acupuncture, I was going for osteopathy, I was having Reiki healing. And my husband said to me the once, like,
Yes.
why don't you just start believing that you're going to heal them? And I'm like, what? What do you mean? You know, so I had no idea what he was talking about. But I had to shift the understanding with my whole family, keep talking to my knees.
Yes.
I've got this, I've
Yes.
got this, I've got this, you know, and I'm
Yes.
healing. I'm freaking healing. But
And I
that's where
go
I
ahead.
think we are led, but at the
Yeah.
same time, it's not a bad thing because we go into these moments of doing. Like I know in the last sort of 3 to 4 years, it was just doing, learning, wanting more. I mean, I've got so many freaking online courses that I still haven't completed. Not a
Well,
proud
it is
moment, okay?
so funny you say that.
But I'm like, okay, I'm going to buy that one because I need to learn more about angels, you know? And then
Yes.
I'm like,
Yes.
oh my God, then the pressure of not finishing the courses. So I had to actually kind of like go, stop it, Michelle, stop it, you know? Because you see things on Instagram, you're like, "Nee, nee, nee. I need more of that learning. Um, so I've really had to reel it in a little bit. And
Yes.
whether that's part of our personalities or part of our learning, I truly think that everything is for everything and
Yes.
nothing is for nothing. And it's all in the doing of what we need to do in that moment. And that for me is the
Yes.
absolute validation of acceptance of who we are.
Yes.
And
Yes.
it's still a learning for me. But to go back to you and your journey, because you were, when I met you, you were bedridden.
Yes. Yeah.
And I feel it's so important to share this with you guys because you're looking at this human being who, you know, 3 years feels like a freaking long time when your body
It
feels like
felt
it's
like
letting
a
down.
lifetime.
And I
Yeah.
can only imagine, you know, you're giving back to orphans where there's this absolute want, need, ability, you know, gosh, I honor you because I know what it's like coming from South Africa and seeing so many children orphaned, and I want to cry because there's only so much we can do in the world.
Yeah.
You know, so when that's taken away from you, which I can only imagine, just seeing your vivaciousness and the beautiful hearted person that you are, like we just clicked, eh? Like when I first met you, I was
Yes.
like, oh my God. Like you just know when you meet a person that's your kind of person.
Yes. Yes.
and and you know, and like when that's just the carpet's like, alrighty, no work, no income, no money, no abilities, no health. What do you do? What did you do? What was the turning point for you, Ali, where you started to connect all the dots? What?
So, well, there was a little bit of connecting throughout it, but really, so it was ups and downs of feeling good, not feeling good, feeling good, not feeling good. Um, and again, I am, while learning just random things, I am healing along the way. So I'm seeing things from a different perspective as the healing's going on. Um, and I realize it gets to the point where, so in December, I had actually gotten to a point where I was feeling really good. And then December rolled around and I basically had a shock to my nervous system. I was unable to use the right side of my body, couldn't tie my shoes. I mean, it was the worst that it's been of the 3 years. And really what I'm realizing now is that the biggest thing that once I worked through the pain from my childhood and just early or young adult experiences, once I worked through that, I'm thinking like I'm done, like I'm good. And really what it came down to was I'm it was self-worth or the lack thereof, really. It was so much of by that point, so much of what I realized was that I had learned everything that I needed to learn and logically and so that I could get to a place where I felt comfortable saying, guys, these are my experiences. I know I can talk to you about this because I know the science behind it. I know there's the research behind it, the data behind it, all of that. And I feel like I thought for a long time that was the validation that I need. I just needed some evidence to say, hey guys, all of this crazy stuff is real. But that wasn't the case because I would have been speaking about this a while ago. It was truly that didn't I didn't know my value. I didn't know my self-worth. I was so concerned about not, you know, being good enough or being called crazy. It truly got down to the point where I was screaming just at whoever was listening, which I mean, there was no one. I just mean God, my angels, spirit guys, like whoever was listening. It was just like, what else do you want from me? I feel like I have healed everything, and clearly I haven't because now I'm worse off than I have been. And that's when I'm not kidding, Michelle. It was like a life review of just all of the times that I was called fat, crazy, stupid. I mean, I could go on and on and on. It was just like, well, there's all of this. And I released that once I was aware that really I mean I realized that by not speaking my truth, it was literally killing me from the inside out. I mean, my body was dying because I hadn't been speaking my truth. Now, yes, I did have a bad reaction to the vaccine that kind of was the
The
catalyst,
catalyst.
but
Mm,
this was also this was going to come up no matter what.
yeah.
I just love to time things so great. And I just, got sick from the vaccine and also had this spiritual awakening at the same time. So physically, it was a lot. When I had the same way I found you, I ended up finding this woman, Julie Ryan, and she's a medical intuitive. And when I saw her, she without her even knowing about the vaccine or where I was at, or she knew nothing, and she said, "You're having a reaction to a dye that's in the Pfizer vaccine." But all of this stuff that this was all lying dormant. This was going to happen no matter what.
Yeah.
So I'm realizing all of this, and I'm realizing the lengths that I was willing to put myself. Like, I mean, I truly was, it felt like I was dying. And I've known deep down for a long time that I just need to speak this truth. I was told this when I was 10. This is why I'm here. And I know this in my heart. I know this. And now I know it logically. I've got the evidence, and I'm still not speaking it, you know? So all of that's brought back to
Well,
me.
now you are, which is
I
great.
I release
Yes.
it, yes. The
Yes.
next day I came out with my post about what had happened to me when I was 10.
Amazing.
Um, and I've actually been writing a children's book for the last like 4 months. Um, and I'm going to start a podcast to really just help people that are very much just, I mean, whatever stage they're in, because there's some people that are in it, in the thick of it, and need help. There's people that are completely unaware of what we're talking about. This conversation might not even make sense to them, like literally might not even make sense to them, because they're just like, what? So everyone is, and then there's people like you, and we're all on such different, we're just in different stages, and everyone's gonna need help. It's teachers helping teachers, it's teachers teaching teachers. Um, so it's really just, I'm just at a place where I'm finally coming out of the dark night of the soul. The last stage of that is purpose and mission, and I'm it's just so funny how it all just kind of has like just concluded the last couple of months. What it came down to me realizing, um what my purpose is, and the fact that I've actually known that the whole time. There's just all these things that are coming together, and all I know is that finally finally being in line with my thoughts, my words, my actions are all in alignment, and finally being able to get to that point. As I mean, the weight that's lifted off my shoulders is, I would do what I did for 3 years a million times again if it meant that I would get to this point. You know what I mean? So
Wow. Well, thank you for sharing. And it is such a
I
delight.
totally got off track. I'm sorry. Did I
No,
answer your?
no, no apologies. Honestly, this is you being you, and that's
Yeah.
why I call it keeping it real because, we already know what judgment feels like. I've just come out of a cycle once again of just going into this absolute space of like, oh my God, what am I doing? Why am I doing this? And I've said this time and time again where there's so much happening and we are electromagnetic fields. So sometimes I don't know what is mine. Sometimes I don't know, when I'm just gravitating or bringing in or working through, like it's all one of the same thing, and I've been told many times that, I am such an empath. I had this absolute ick with this, like, you're so sensitive, like, because parents say it all the time, my kid's so sensitive, and excuse me how I say that with the voice that I'm saying it, but I'm just like, damn it, just stop it, just stop,
Yes.
projecting.
Yeah.
And it's, yes, we are all sensitive, and who are we without our labels? Who are we without being like, it makes me feel quite safe and like part of the team that, hey, we got ADHD together, because that's all we want to do is we want to fit together. We want the labels to know that we're not alone.
Yeah.
And that's the beauty of it, because I didn't even know that for many years, like, what do you mean ADHD? We were just told we were freaking naughty, like stop it. Just stop it.
Yeah.
Otherwise you're gonna freaking get a hiding. And now we've got um these labels that kind of go, that makes me fit there, that makes me fit there, that and you are adding value and you are adding worth because talking about the vaccine, and Ali actually asked me before I started recording, like, is it okay? And I said to her, everything is acceptable, okay? And it's either going to stir up something for people where it might bring up something inside of you where you might go, oh, shit, wow, okay, that makes sense to me. Or it's going to make you feel something different, like, oh, wow, that's interesting. And that's what I said to you. Everything is acceptable, everything, because I am not here to stifle anybody in their story because it's your story and
Right.
it's your moment. I say moment, but I know that and I can feel that you're gonna share so much of your wisdom. But our wisdom is innately inside of us. But when we're not too sure what that wisdom is showing us, we may feel like a bit of a puppet.
Yeah.
And everything is acceptable because we know that a lot of us, I know that these last 3 years, and I've seen it because I've worked with people opposite ends of the spectrum. Some people, clients of mine, won't even sleep with their husbands because they've had the vaccine, and the wife has gone, mm-mm, you're gonna put, I'm like, are you freaking kidding me? What, really? But that's just the place that she's in. And I know that sounds judgmental, but it's kind of like, wow, I had the vaccine, and it brought up a lot of shit between my husband and myself because he was the opposite end of the spectrum, and we both knew what this was about. We all know what this is about. Like,
Yeah. Yes.
let's take the
Yeah.
blinkers off, okay? We're coming to realize a lot of what this was about.
Mhm.
Excuse me, but I still made the choices that I made in that moment, and I would
Yes.
not change it. Okay, I
Yes.
would not change it. And there are certain times in our lives that we just do what we do, guys, with not knowing the reason why we're doing it.
Mhm.
But if it was the catalyst to bring change, then I kind of go, wow,
Yeah. Yeah.
because it was going to happen regardless. And it doesn't matter whether it was the vaccine, but sometimes we don't know when we're going to be woken up or
Yeah.
shaken up or or have a right will kick up the butt to actually go, okay, for me, it's like none of us know, but our souls know their journeys.
Yeah.
And that's
Yes.
the truth. That for me
Yes.
is the truth.
Yes.
No matter
I
how we try and speak ourselves out of it, no matter how we try and deflect from it, our souls know the truth of what we are here to share. And I know I don't resonate with everybody. Like, I think, and I say this respectfully, people who are academic, because I don't understand a lot of the academic words.
yeah.
I get my stuff mixed up because of just being dyslexic. I don't contextualize. My husband's always saying, context, bunny, context. I'm like, huh? I think I just explained myself correctly. Like, how did you not understand that? Like, I'm just wondering. He's like, because I think to myself, well, I thought I articulated things correctly, but I'm realizing that I don't. In my head, I
Yeah.
am, but
Right.
sometimes I can't get the words out correctly.
Yes.
But it's trusting in the
Yes.
vibration that the person is receiving what is being shared
Yes.
and in whichever true form that it is being shared. And that was something that I actually earlier on I had this calling to share, and it really was a calling to just share what was on my heart at the time. But then when my head kicks in, I'm like, what the hell, Michelle? What are you putting out this? What are you doing? Because academically, people are going to go, delete, what? This chick's got, but that's just the judgment on myself. Because, like you, at 3 a.m. in the morning, and thank you for that reminder, you know, people will find you and resonate with you when and how and if
Yes.
there is an alignment in the vibration and the
Yes.
frequency and the story. Because
Yeah.
that is the truth. It's our stories that we vibrate with, that we resonate with. So,
Yes.
ending off, what do you like to do for fun?
Um, anything with my dogs. That's the number one thing, probably. This question's hard to answer because for a long time I couldn't really do a lot that I would normally do for fun. I was very limited to my bed. So
Okay, so what did you do
honestly,
for fun in your
but,
bed?
but now that I say that, I was gonna say anything with my dogs, really. But this talking about all of this is what I do for fun now, or just learning about more. Like, I mean, this stuff gets me so jazzed up. It's not even funny. I love talking about all of this. So really, I find this fun. But to just kind of like hang out and cut loose, and I mean anything with my dogs for sure is my favorite thing. I
I
also love to eat a lot at restaurants.
Me too. Me too.
Especially
I know. And there's so much in what we can find fun, and it's I believe that the pendulum's swinging because so many of us were taking this spiritual journey so freaking seriously, and the
yes,
pendulum
it's
feels
not
like,
so easy.
yes, me too. Like you spoke about all that information, and then sometimes the
Yes.
information was just a bit too much,
Oh,
even for
yes.
me. We're just like,
Yes.
Jesus, who do you believe? Who's telling the truth? Like, and for me, it's just, okay, come back to being the human, and how can we just integrate having the best time of our lives? Because be careful what you wish for. I was seeking deep conversations. Holy shit, I was getting so much deep conversation. I was like, I need more fun, man. Like, this is just too deep for me. And for me to even say this is deep, you must know that this is freaking deep.
I told my brother, I was like, be careful what you wish for. I was like, that's probably one of my biggest takeaways out of all of this is because you're gonna get it. And if there's something that isn't in alignment, if you're asking for something that's gonna blow your mind away, then you're going to go into shock in some way, shape, or form within your body. Or if your heart hasn't healed something, you know what I mean? Like it's all gotta align. Otherwise, you might end up asking for something that you're just not necessarily ready for, and it's gonna trigger things. But again, I think your soul is ready for it, which is why it's asking for those
Yes,
things.
yes,
Like maybe it just
yes,
needs a fire lit under you.
yes, yes.
Yes,
Yes,
yes.
absolutely. So we're going to end off with a yes, guys. Yes, yes. Anyway, my head was going out the window there, and you can clearly hear my husband's been away for the last week, and so I am so 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 thrilled to have you here with us today on Keeping It Real, Ellie. And may you keep shining your light bright. May you keep shining that beautiful smile. And it is an absolute
So,
honor and privilege to have walked this journey with you, um, and seeing you come out like into what you know. Everything that you've known is
what?
what you know.
Yes,
And
yes.
I look forward to hearing about your book, and I look forward to hearing about your podcast. And guys, just keep looking up at the stars, looking at the sun, and just being you, being real, because that for me is the new currency, is the authenticity. The more that we just love and accept each other for who we are, in our craziness of who we are, like, how can life not get any better than this moment right now? So thank you from my heart to yours, Eddie. I love you. I love you.
I
I love
love
you.
you. I do. Thank you.
I'm so grateful. Guys, have a beautiful day wherever you are in the world. And remember, love is why we are here. And I'm still learning that it is about loving ourselves first and foremost, and then, sharing that with the people that come into our space. So have a beautiful day wherever you are in the world. Bye, guys.